Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma, and today we have a really special guest, someone I've been wanting to talk to, interview, have on the podcast for really since we started. He's special. He's special in our life. He's a musician. He's a spiritual person. He's a teacher. He's a student. He's pretty much what we are all here to emulate. So stay tuned as we interview the fabulous Trevor Hall. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
All right, Trevor Hall, welcome to the Illumination Podcast. We've been over here doing some tech magic, and we're so happy you're here. And I know one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on is to support you in your upcoming tour. So we're going to talk about that a lot. And we've got some questions for you. But first off, welcome. And how's it going today over there in Colorado?
It's great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
For sure. Are you currently performing, or are these days like rest days for you? What's your schedule like?
No, right now we've had quite a bit of time off, which is really, really nice. We've had almost like a month and a half off, which is probably some of the longest time we've had at home. So it's been really nice just to stay home and cook and, do domestic things.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, I heard you in San Diego. We're here in Carlsbad, California, but I heard it was just, maybe 2 months ago, you were at the Music Box? And I think it was the last night.
Yeah, that was in November, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, and it was the last night of your tour.
Yeah, last night of our tour, yeah.
I love the show. What did you think of the venue?
I really liked that place. It was the first time we played there, and I liked how it had those balconies, like the two balconies, and I liked this kind of shotgun room type of layout. And the crowd was really, really wonderful. So yeah, it was a great way to end the tour for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know I enjoyed it. So why don't we just start, kick off the tour? Is this the same theme of tour that you're moving into next, or is it part two? Just share a little bit about this Fruitful Darkness tour.
Well, this tour is quite different that we're about to enter into. It's called A Night in the Village, and it's a different show in the sense that I'm playing solo. It's much more of a storyteller show. I have like a slide projector with me that I show images of like people and places that inspired certain songs. So we're also playing much smaller venues, so it's just more intimate. It's a much different tour in the sense that it's a little more relaxed. There's a Q&A at the end of it. So,
that's so cool.
It's a really sweet night.
And how many cities are you at?
I think we're doing about 14 dates, maybe 13 dates, cool. 13 cities. Yeah, so we're excited.
I love the name. I know what that means to me, or what I understand that. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Fruitful Darkness and what that's really about.
Well, this tour is not called the Fruitful Darkness tour. This tour is called A Night in the Village. So, are you referring to our previous tour, or?
I want to hear about the Night in the Village.
yeah, that's what I want to hear about. Okay, got it. I'm sorry if I was confused there. Yeah.
No, it's okay. A Night in the Village is just, the sense or the idea of the village is very inspiring to me. just because from my travels, abroad and kind of seeing the village aspect in different countries, especially in India and Nepal, there's a simplicity, and the people, the villagers, are simple people that have not lost their, I think, connection to like very fundamental qualities of kindness and respect and dignity and hospitality, and they're not complex, and it's very inspiring to me. And I think that the village is kind of the idea of the village has really grown from being like visiting villages to the village of the heart, and the simplicity of the heart, and the simplicity of our own inner spirit. And that's something that we try to create on this tour, that intimate feeling, where it's not so much like, performer and audience. It's more of just a gathering where we can exchange these stories and songs and questions and the whole bit. So
it's such a great way. Tour. Yeah, it's such a great way for you to get to know your audience even more. I mean, I've been watching you on Instagram, and, like we said, the first time we saw you was at the Arc in Ann Arbor years ago. I think we went twice. And then here at the Belly Up in San Diego and the Music Box, and you definitely have, I mean, fans is the wrong word. I feel like they are like just a community for you. And I don't know if it's like, if you could share a little bit about how that's cultivated. I can feel and hear your intention. Is there anything you feel you do differently from other artists that allows these people to have such a strong connection with you?
I don't know. I just do me, I just kind of, vibrate, I guess, from my own space, and, the people that it connects with that's great. And the, people that it doesn't connect with, that's also great. I don't really think about, I guess, pleasing people, it's more of a thing of, staying true to your heart, and the people that will vibrate with that, your energy, will come around, so,
right.
Because I think the pleasing people business is a tricky business, and that's not a business I want to be involved in. So,
truth.
yeah.
Have you ever tried to get into that? I mean, as a musician, the popularity kind of stuff, or did you find yourself in that and then needing to step away, or is that just something that you've been able to avoid through your whole career?
I think that, I've definitely tried to like step into that, area, but it never goes well. So I've learned from my past mistakes, and by this time I'm, I don't know, I've been doing this for almost 15 years. I started very young, and I'm kind of over that world. So I'm happy to be in a place that is more, true to myself and true to my spirit and the things that I believe in. So
yeah, I love that. I really appreciate it. And speaking of your spirit, Nick and I are big fans of India. We go quite a bit, and I know that it's a place that speaks to you. I saw on Instagram, it's your wife, Emery, is that right? You had an anniversary, and it looked like you got married in India. Is that correct?
Well, we got engaged in India. Yeah, we met in India, and then we got engaged in India. And one of our teachers kind of did a little ceremony for us. Unbeknownst to us, we didn't know, but it was just through his love and affection that a spontaneous, attitude that it happened. So so it just special.
Yeah. What part of India is there like a place that you go to regularly, or just tell us a little bit about that trip?
Yeah, I mean, I usually do go to Dakshineshwar, which is just north of Calcutta. Pretty much every trip, it's kind of a must for me. It's kind of like my backyard, you know. I'm very familiar with it, and home, know many people there. And we also go to Allahabad, which is just north of Varanasi, north of Benares. And that's also a must. So those two places are kind of like my home. And then I usually try to add a new place here and there, but usually those places are always a must.
I get it. When we travel, we go to what's called the Vedanta Academy. It's near Pune. Our guru teaches there. So next trip, you can look that up. But there's something about entering that country, and there's like the spirit of happiness amongst the poverty, amongst the wealth. That it is really a different vibe. And I know for us, for me anyways, and it sounds like for you, that's just, there's a way to recharge. It's almost like you leave the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely a spiritual recharge for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've been listening to your music for a long time, and I've really enjoyed it through the years. You know, what I think is cool is the messages that you put in, and I have noticed how it has, like, it's really, there's a deep sense of spirituality behind it. And I'm kind of curious, you know, because I look at some of them and they invite me to ask questions. I look at other ones and they kind of like, they provide some guidance. And I'm wondering if you can maybe just talk a little bit about in your music. Is it more, you know, is it more important for you in your music or in your spiritual practice to be asking questions, or is it more important for you to be receiving answers?
Well, I don't really like to, I guess, confine myself to one area. The music process is a process of letting go, you know, and getting out of my own way and not involving myself too much. So, you know, it's whatever wants to come through. I let that come through, and I don't try to reason about it. I don't try to understand it. I don't try to, you know, oh, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? You know, all that kind of comes later. And I find that, you know, sometimes the songs are, you know, something is speaking to me, and sometimes I'm speaking to another space. And that's that kind of divine, I guess, connection for me, you know, to that realm or spirit or space that is beyond myself, you know. And yeah, so it's and I, you know, a lot of the times, you know, when a song comes through, I really don't really know what it's about, you know, and until maybe a week later or a month later or a year later or some, you know, there's still songs that I really am not quite sure. I can't put into words, you know, what it means, but I can feel it, you know, in my bones and my heart. And the feeling is almost more important, or I think it is more important than the explanation.
It's like that divine intuition.
Yeah, it's just, it can't be explained, you know, because it's beyond my intellect. You know, so yeah, I think it's just however it wants to play to me or sing to me or dance to, whatever it is. I just let it do what it wants to do. That's my attitude.
That's great. I love that. When did it all begin? I know you started young, and you're from South Carolina. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm from South Carolina.
I spent a couple summers there as a musician in Charleston playing the Spoleto Festival opera. And as a classical musician background, I'm retired now, but I was always really jealous of people like you that could just pick it up and start singing and creating, because I was pretty neurotic, which is one reason I stopped, like, you know, playing in the symphony orchestra. I played in Hong Kong for a long time, and I'm just like, okay, I got to let go. So for you, when it came about as this like richness and this talent, do you remember how it seeped into your being, or what prompted you to start singing and playing guitar?
Well, you know, it was there all along. It wasn't something where it's like, oh, it came into my life at this moment. You know, my dad is a musician, so you know, there's pictures of me like in diapers, playing the drums. So there wasn't like a point in my career that was like, oh, I want to be a musician. It was just always was, it always is. It always,
your soul came in like that.
It was inseparable from my life, from my breathing, from everything. So, I don't really know if there was a specific point, where I was, I don't know, I didn't start kind of writing my own songs until I was, maybe in middle school, but, it just, it's always been that way. And it's a blessing, it's a blessing.
Yeah, it's a true talent, and it just a different language from the soul. Was there ever a point growing up where, so many artists, musicians hit rock bottom? Like, it's like, whatever happens, and they decide to turn it around, and it's almost a pivotal point. Did anything like that occur in your life, or has it just been this constant ascension and dedication?
It definitely has not been a constant ascension, that's for sure. It's definitely been a roller coaster of emotions and experiences, I mean, like I said, I started very young, I signed my big first record deal when I was a senior in high school. I hadn't even graduated yet. So, that didn't, work out either. I recorded 2 albums for that label. Both of them were shelved, they didn't come out. And, I wasn't able to release them. And, that was over the course of a few years too. So it was it's a big struggle. And then, and then after that, I started releasing music through another label and touring. But, I started touring my first tour. I was 17 years old. And, when you tour, all year, every year, even though you're young, it catches up with you.
Right.
And I definitely hit a point, a few years ago where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I need a break. It's become something else, and I kind of lost my connection to that original space. So I had to make a decision and stop and a little scary because I didn't know how long this mood was going to last, if it was going to be a week, a month, a year, whatever. But I ended up taking a year off, and it was amazing. It was the best thing I ever did, and got to kind of recalibrate everything and remember the reason, the source, why I do what I do. So, yeah, it's definitely been a crazy roller coaster. And, now we're off a label and we're, releasing this album independently and doing things on our own. It's a whole new journey. It's a whole new experience. So definitely anything but a constant ascension.
Well, perhaps that roller coaster just keeps going up, sometimes it's just funny how it works. But, well, thanks for the honesty. I know that will help many artists listening because it's easy, right, to be on the outside and go like, oh man, that dude has it together. It's been in flow. And the reality is, the struggles provide the gems too. So that's pretty cool. Hey, Nick, do you remember the tabla player?
I do. I definitely remember
so
the tabla
Trevor,
player,
we were always so taken with, you had an amazing, I don't know if he's still in your band, but the drummer who played the tablas?
I don't think I ever had a drummer play the tablas.
What would he have played then? Do you remember, Nick? We were like, this guy's amazing.
I think it was a percussion. It was a percussion player, is that correct?
Yeah. Would he have just been playing tom-toms, Nick? I don't know. We were so taken by him.
If it was the percussion player, he was sitting on a cajon, and he had all these bells.
That part.
Yeah. Doug Fitz was his name.
Okay. Yeah, he was great. I thought he was doing tablas.
even just as a performer, you're in a certain way, you're holding space for a lot of people. But again, kind of coming back to the nature of your music, it's spiritual by nature. And, that's a very, very different space to hold. Do you feel like, I guess my question is, how do you manage that for yourself? People probably look at you in a kind of a different light, not only as a performer, but also, a really beautiful soul and a really amazing, teacher in certain ways through your music. Like, how do you manage that?
Well, I don't think I'm holding that space. I think that space is holding me. So
well,
I don't really have
right there.
Yeah, I don't
There's
really
your
have
answer,
to manage
Nick.
it. Yeah. Yeah, it's more of
That's
being
beautiful.
held by that space and being in it with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I had a question about, there's two songs Nick knows, like your music's going on in the morning while we're doing a little yoga, or it's like my happy music. I always say in my next life, if I have a voice, I'm going to be in Trevor Hall's band, but I can't guarantee that. So for now, I know it's just so funny, but there's a song, Zion, and
To Zion, yeah.
To Zion. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. It's such a beautiful song.
Well, that song was actually an older song. It was inspired from this book. I received this book from a friend called Book of Memories, which was this book about pretty much this writer's friendship with this Rastafarian in Jamaica, and pretty much just recording their conversations, but very extremely beautiful, extremely special book. And in the book, there's a line where Prince is the name of the Rasta. His name is Prince, and he says, Zion is in the kingdom of the heart, and love is the key to open Zion's door. That's what it said. And it just really struck me. That line really struck me, and I was filled with these images of, what that road would look like or feel like, walking into that, I guess, kingdom of the heart, that chamber of the heart. So the song was just kind of an expression of the images that I was feeling from that line, and what I just felt from reading the book, and also my meditations on that place, within all of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a special song.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I love that. The other thing that always intrigues me is, who is Uncle Joe?
Uncle Joe is a very important figure in our community of musicians, that we have, our friendship of our musicians. And, when we look at an elder who is a teacher, we usually call them an uncle or an auntie like this. So Uncle Joe is a friend of ours that was pretty much the reason for bringing our community together, as far as, me and Nako and Dustin Thomas and Tubby Love and Mike Love, all these people, this kind of, our kind of family. It's all due to Uncle Joe. And Uncle he's this kind of, person that gets so excited off of other people's happiness, and also bringing people together. But, he's one of those people that, like, he's the reason for, like, so much, but you never see him. He's always behind the scenes, So just a very special person, very inspiring person. And if it wasn't for Uncle, all of us probably wouldn't, know each other and have this family that is so valued, in our community. So it's really, really special in that regard.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I have a question, just for fun. Sometimes, I have like my little guilty pleasures as far as music is concerned. because I'm a musician too. I freelanced around the Detroit area for a long time. Played a lot of classical and orchestral music. Really love jazz. And man, if my musician friends, when they find out about my guilty music pleasures, like every once in a while, I'll pop on an Enya album or something, and we have a good laugh about it. But it's just like soothing to me, and I like soothing music sometimes. And so what I'm wondering is, do you have any guilty listening pleasures of your own that you just kind of dive into that nobody really knows about? Some pop music? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I do, but it's hard for me to say because I don't really feel guilty about any of them. I think I like what I like, and if I feel the connection, it doesn't really matter, who it is. It can be, Taylor Swift or like Bob Marley, So it's hard for me to say what would be a guilty pleasure, because I don't feel too much guilt around the music. Funny. But I love. Go ahead.
I was going to say is if you did have some, it might show up around Taylor Swift or something around there.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever moves me. It doesn't matter, what it is. Yeah, but I guess that would be.
Do you ever have like the Rolling Stones or Prince or Michael Jackson or the Beatles playing?
My musical taste is like I don't know. I feel like when when people were growing up, like you could take like two different roads. I felt like, and it was either like the Beatles or like Bob Marley. It was like, it's almost like people went like two different ways. Of course, there are people that listen to both, like no problem. But I feel like it was just like this different route. Like you either went that route into like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and the Who and, all that, or you went the route of Bob Marley and Burning Spear and Black Uhuru and, all that stuff. And I definitely went the Bob Marley Burning Spear route. That was the music that kind of really formed my foundation and inspired me. And so, I mean, some musicians are like, they kind of get like weird with me, like, you're not familiar with like this Beatles or album or like ever. It's like, no, I'm not. Like, it just, that wasn't my thing. So I kind of went, the other road. So usually if there's any classics playing in our house, it's usually the reggae classics, the roots classics that
I love that.
Inspired me. Yeah.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. What about any classical music? Like, have you ever turned any, Bach 4-part inventions or, I don't know, just the old school kind of classical music?
Well, I majored in classical guitar in high school, and that's when I kind of got a classical bug. I really, really started to love listening to classical music, all different types of classical music. It really expanded my, consciousness and horizons as far as music goes, just approaching music differently. It was really a beautiful period, but it kind of ended when I, graduated school and continued on. But there's still a few, that I listen to here and there. Like Scriabin, I really love Scriabin. And,
for sure. Yeah.
Oh, God, like so many.
The colors, the nuances. Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, I can see it in your talent in the way you write. It's just like there is an expansiveness and it is truly like you're downloading the next message coming in with different colors. It's so cool. On tour, since you have played so many concerts, has there ever been a concert where you've just gone, whoa, that was like everyone was just buzzing. It was amazing. It was completely in flow. Or was there that concert where you're like, nothing went right and you just kind of felt like you were misplaced?
Yeah, I've had both experiences for sure. I mean, usually, if anything, usually it kind of, it errs on the side of, it didn't come together, which is fine. And usually everything's good, but yeah, there's been a handful of concerts where it was just, it's like the reason you do it, the reason you keep going, because you feel this feeling of just euphoria and expansion and just limitlessness,
so true.
It's such a connection with people and the music and the vibe, One of those was recently, like on our Fruitful Darkness tour that we did in the fall, when we went to play Vancouver. It just all came together, and it wasn't coming together before that. We were held at the border for like 5 hours, and we were late, and we were worried we weren't going to get there in time, and then we got there, and, we didn't have enough time to sound check, and everything was kind of going wrong, and then all of a sudden we just got on stage and it just clicked. So those moments are so amazing when that does happen, and, likewise, on the other side, when it's not happening, those moments are so miserable when everything's falling apart. So it's, you get the full spectrum of experience,
Right. It's like life, right? It's such a representation of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, touring is, a lot of people from the outside looking in look at that and it's like, oh man, like what a blast. You get to travel the world and do something that you love and everything like that. And that's awesome, but it's not an easy way to live, traveling from city to city, showing up and going through that whole process and everything. There's a side to that I think a lot of people you just aren't even aware of. It's not necessarily their business, their job's to show up and enjoy the show, But I always, when I look at somebody like you who's been on tour since, dang man, like 16, that's amazing to me, and really, really incredible that you've had the resiliency to stick with that and to continue to show up and reinvent yourself, man. I just think that's awesome.
Well, not just that. I mean, yeah, Trevor, I'd like to hear about how or just the way the musicians in your band get along. I mean, do you find that you've got to present yourself sort of like that conductor, the head, or is there just an understanding of creativity?
I mean, I'm pretty lucky in respect that, I think, everybody's vibration, attracts a similar vibration, that's even in life, if you're a sports guy, you're going to be friends with people who love sports. If you're an introvert, you're not going to be friends with somebody who's really loud and wants to go out all the time. So I think likewise, if you're a spiritual person, you're going to attract people that are on the same path, and they're going to attract you, So I think that, I've been lucky just in the respect of, the guys that are in our band are very similar in the respect that it's not we are super party, we go out and every night and get wasted and rock and roll and, that's not really our vibe. I think we're kind of boring if you, off the stage, but everybody has a similar vibe, and I've been lucky with being surrounded by just really good guys who are super just talented, number one, but also just fun to be around and respectful and mellow and not too crazy. And it's just, it's special in that regard. So, we all get along incredibly well. I don't think that we've ever really fought about anything. So,
that's amazing. That is not the world of a classical musician. Yeah. In orchestras, I remember just it was a little tenuous. But are there any musicians that you're like, oh man, I would love to jam with that person that you've not yet played with?
Oh yeah, 100%. There's so many people. I mean,
like your top three, who would those be?
I mean, my like top three would be like Bon Iver, Bjork.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bon Iver, Bjork, and gosh, those are my two people I can think of right now.
That would be a cool concert. Yeah.
Both really good ones.
Yeah, or like also like the tallest man on earth. That's the person that would be really amazing to play with. So yeah, there's a lot of people still.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. Nick, I know I have another question. What about you? I don't want to hog Trevor's time.
Well, I wanted to bring up one last part, just as a musician, and you mentioned, how a lot of bands are out there partying and they're just doing what that lifestyle does. But one of the topics that's come up on our podcast several different times is the role of drugs in spiritual development. And, we've kind of debated this back and forth, about is it valuable for spiritual development? Is it is it prohibitive? Is it, everybody's got their own kind of different thing with that. I'm kind of curious, with your experiences and certainly being a part of that, part of that lifestyle, which I know that can be a part of it. Doesn't sound like it is for you guys, but, I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that. And what do you think about that as far as like the ayahuasca trips or, all kinds of other stuff that people do to, to enhance their spirituality, so to speak.
Burning Man syndrome?
Something like that. Maybe a little something like that.
Well, I mean, I can only speak from my own experience. Like you said, everybody's speaking from their own experience. And, everybody's different, but in my view, I think maybe those substances, have an effect for like a certain period of time, but they're not a permanent effect. And I feel that the people, the highest people that I have met in my life, whether it be a yogi or just an elder or, even people that we read about, those beings didn't take those, or they were vibrating at this space that was so high without any of those substances. And so I try to model, my life after that. That's what I most resonate with, I mean, of course, in high school, like, being a teenager, you experiment with certain things like I surely did. And yeah, they opened up my mind, but they didn't like cure me of anything. They didn't have a lasting effect on like my being and my person. And, I think that the medicines that are out there that are medicines, whether it be ayahuasca or, which I have never done, so I can't really speak to it, or like, even like herb, it depends on how you approach it, I believe. And I think that, there's these traditions, these like indigenous traditions all over the world that have used these substances in such a sacred and like, prayerful way, whether it be like the huichol in like Mexico with like peyote or, but they have a connection to these substances. They have a respect. They have a prayer kind of conversation with these things, that these plants and things are like living gods to them, and they're respected as such. So if they're respected in that way, then they're going to be treated differently, and their effect is going to be different. So I think those same substances that are extremely holy to these cultures are also extremely dangerous to people who don't approach them in the correct way. And I think that, better to abstain from them than approach them in a disrespectful way and just do them because you want to like have a trip. That part I don't agree with. That part I think is disrespectful. I think it's just, it's not respectful to the spirit. It's not respectful to our own bodies. It's not respectful to our own minds. And So in my, what I believe, like I said, is that, the beings that have affected me the greatest are high off their practice over accumulative years and years of practice. And it's a lasting effect. It's a permanent effect. I don't want anything temporary. I don't want to take this thing and have this experience and then just be right back where I am. So I want to go for the real thing. And in my mind, the real thing is inside us already. And there's so many tools to get there, healthy tools to get there that don't require taking anything. So, that's my opinion, but I don't discount anybody else's experiences, healing through certain medicines, but that's my view, I guess, on this subject.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's probably one of the most thorough answers we've gotten. And thank you for that. No, really, I really appreciate it. And thank you for diving into that subject. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
I love that. It speaks volumes. I am, we want to, first of all, encourage everyone out there. Nick and I have heard Trevor Hall live several times, and we are super picky about who we're in front of and where we go. And you can find the tour schedule and tickets on trevorhallmusic.com. So please go if you're in or nearby. Fly in. What the heck? Fly in and go hear him play. I know it's going to be exquisite. And there's a question I love to ask our guests. And Trevor, is there anything that is on your bucket list of life that you want to do, yet you've not told anybody about it yet?
I mean, not really, to be honest. I mean, there's a few places I would like to visit, but I don't really think that they're bucket list worthy. I think, I mean, I've been so blessed and have traveled so much and have just learned from my experience that whatever is meant to be will be, and surrender to the journey and the path and, just live a good life. So, I don't know, whatever's in store.
And I love that. And just if you could speak a little bit, I mean, respect is a big word for you, surrender. What do you see could change in this country that we live in if we had more of that? The respect of one another, certainly from the leadership down, if more people had a sense of surrendering to something higher. I think that we are in interesting times, and at least from my perspective, I see there's an energy and there's a frequency and there's a voice that is screaming at us, come on guys, let's go, let's rise up. And then there's a lot of the opposite that's happening too. So just any words of wisdom to our listeners in that respect?
I don't know about words of wisdom, but I think, I'm grateful for these times. These times are the times that really force us to go inside and go deep and not deal with any bullshit, and really go within ourselves and find out who we are and find out why we're here and what we're made of. And, when we look back on history, most of the great leaders of our time, whether it be Martin Luther King or Gandhi or, Harriet Tubman or so many people, they all came out of times of great darkness and depression. It set the stage for the light to, come forth, So I think that, we find ourselves, maybe in a tricky time, but it's a good time to really, be raw and stop messing around, and, there's polarities of life is that's what the world is. There's good and bad, there's bitter and sweet, there's dark and light, without the one, there won't be the other.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.